Hello and welcome to the Climate Conscious podcast. I'm your host, Dirval Bazi. And today I'm joined by Menakshi Babulall. Hi, Menakshi.
Hi, Derval. Thanks for meeting with me and having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to share our story with you.
Menakshi Babulall is a dedicated advocate for women's empowerment, community development, and sustainability. Hailing from Guyana, she is the founder of A Different View Project and Vaksana. Her focus is on creating a safe and nurturing space for women and gender expansive individuals. Menakshi's mission centers on shifting away from a trauma driven approach, promoting conscious living and mindfulness to usher in a future of regeneration. With a profound love for her homeland and a vision for a more equitable world, she stands as a catalyst for transformation in Guyana and beyond. So, some of you may know that I lived in Guyana for 2 years, and while there, I had the privilege of staying at Vaksana, the women's retreat center run by Menakshi. Getting there was an adventure by itself, involving a bus ride from Georgetown and a fast boat across the Essequibo River. But words cannot describe the beauty and serenity of this space that you have built from the ground up, Menakshi. When this episode goes live, I will definitely repost pictures from that experience on Instagram. But before I get carried away reminiscing about this memorable experience, Menakshi, please tell us a little about yourself. What motivated you to start a Different View project and Vaksana and the mission behind it all?
Thank you so much, Derval. What an introduction. I'm so grateful for the words that you shared and the time that we spent together at Vaksana. To answer your question, the mission behind a Different View project and Vaksana stemmed from my time living and growing up in Guyana, as well as my background in international development studies. I had the opportunity to study abroad as well to travel, and I wanted to put something together that would be able to help my community, especially allowing resources to reach women and children that are in need. One day, I was leaving for a volunteer trip in Kenya, and my very Guyanese dad said, you're going to go to these countries and help everybody, but you're not going to go back to your own and help them. And it was very direct, very crass. And I think that's when it struck me. This is my first year of university in my international development program. And this is my dad telling me, kind of holding me, uh, you know, holding me up and being like, hey, this is what you're aiming to do, but what does that have to do with the place that you're from? And so that's where it kind of, struck a chord. And I went to Kenya. I had my experience there. And while I was there, I noticed how similar the culture, the being, the people, everything was similar to my home country. And I realized that I wasn't meant to be anywhere else. I think where I was meant to be was home. I was meant to do this work with the people that I grew up with, the people that, can really use my help. Not to say that, I couldn't be doing work anywhere else, but I think it matters more a little bit when you have been with these people from the day you were born. There's something about growing up in a village and being connected to so many people that is just so fundamentally different from when you're living in a city and you barely know your neighbors. So that's kind of where all of that stemmed from. I wanted to create a community and help the people that I have known my entire life, as well as the children that are now growing up in this community. Sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying, giving the mission in answering your question.
Well, leave it to Caribbean parents to give you a reality check, right?
Right? Exactly.
So you grew up in Guyana, studied abroad, traveled a bit, even volunteered in Kenya. But what is evident, and even from meeting you, is that you have a deep love for Guyana, land of many waters, as it is called, and you are very committed to bringing positive change to your homeland. And I know you are also very conscious of sustainability issues, no doubt influenced by your diverse experiences in both the global north and the global south. So, what are the key sustainability challenges that you have observed in Guyana, and how are you addressing these issues in your work?
Some of the key sustainability challenges include access to quality education, um, insufficient infrastructure, and environmental degradation. So, some of the ways we are aiming to address those is by having eco-friendly designs. We want to use climate-smart architecture in our building designs. We have been using natural materials, sustainable materials. We are encouraging conservation of the wetlands surrounding Vaksana. We're doing environmental educational programs for children, and we hope to for adults as well. Yeah, those are some of the things that we are doing right now and have done to promote sustainability and sustainability education within the community.
Yeah, and I've seen it firsthand, and I also want you to go a bit deeper and tell us, what is Vaksana. But I must say, I admire how you are very intentional about embodying resilience in your operations, firstly being gender responsive, prioritizing climate smart initiatives such as regenerative agriculture, and also using a circular model so that you can minimize your impact on the environment within which you exist. So, for the listener who has no idea, what is Vaksana?
Well, that is a very loaded question. And I think every day we're kind of figuring that out ourselves. But I know we're not supposed to say that on paper or on maybe podcasts. um, but Vaksana aims to be a safe space for women and children. Um, we want it to be a space that will house educational programs, training programs, um, regenerative agriculture, like you mentioned. We have three key components that sort of define Vaksana, which is regenerative agriculture, ecotourism, and community outreach. So, like you mentioned, that circular structure, we hope to use that structure in order to ensure our sustainability as a business and organization. Um, One thing that nonprofits suffer from oftentimes is financing and funding. So making it a circular organization where we have ecotourism to supplement our community outreach programs and regenerative agriculture, we hope to be able to sustain ourselves along with community support.
Well, that's definitely a sustainable model in terms of the three pillars being interconnected and being able to support each other. Oftentimes, we think that becoming economically sustainable and being environmentally sustainable are at odds, but we're seeing more and more where those two priorities can work hand in hand. Then you bring in the social aspect of community outreach. I think this is definitely a model that would be an example for many other tourism ventures to follow, given that Guyana has such vast natural ecosystems which are gaining more and more attention on the international stage.
Yes, 100%. One of the goals is to kind of model sustainable development, ecotourism, regenerative agriculture in a way that is replicable in other communities, in our rural communities, in Guyana, to enhance their tourism, enhance their capacities to, address food scarcity, to address lack of tourism or ecotourism. The thing is, I see ecotourism as a bomb and an ability to help fund some of the things that we have been unable to do in terms of environmental sustainability projects as well as regenerative agriculture projects. I think tourism can act as a way to propel these industries and these sectors um, through more international focus, um, and just like giving us a space where we have things to share with the larger community, larger global community. You can do farm tours, you can do educational workshops of how to make different products, connecting with the diaspora, connecting with individuals who would like to learn our ways of agriculture, of making crafts, etc. So I think through doing all of these, we have the ability to educate and learn as we grow. So, yes.
And I think this type of ground up, bottom up approach to tourism and with a focus on ecotourism is the way to go. In the Caribbean region, we have so many examples of the highly commercial tourism products. And oftentimes we have our local communities being excluded or exploited. So I really do appreciate this approach to ecotourism. So thanks for sharing that and giving us some insight into the vision and the mission of Vaksana. You told me once what Vaksana means. Can you share with us the meaning of that name? I love it so much.
So Vaksana is the Sanskrit word meaning fertile place, reinvigorating, refreshing. These are all elements we want the space to emulate for the visitors and people who are there. And we chose, well, not we, I think it's definitely a me thing. I chose a Sanskrit word because I really wanted to connect to my ancestry. We are Indo-Guyanese, and I wanted Vaksana to be a space where I can be able to connect to that ancestry as well through different methodologies, through yoga, meditation, the wellness aspect of what we would do. That space also have elements of that. So I also wanted Vaksana and this project to have elements of me in there. And that those elements to be able to connect with, the larger community.
So could you share an example of an impactful moment from your work with women and communities in Guyana?
There's so many so far. We've done a lot of work and we want to do so much more. But as you asked the question, one of the things that like struck my mind is just the simple thing of giving gifts during the holidays. I remember just last Christmas, we were handing out some gifts, and there's this little child. We would take the gifts around the community, and we'll hand it out to the families. And there was this little child, and I think it was his first gift, and he just got emotional. He was about maybe like 2 years old, and we gave him a little like cooking set, and he was so excited about it. But like he didn't say anything; he just held it, and his face did those wrinkly little things, like he was about to like cry. And I just like simple things of giving a gift can be so important. Working with the kids is honestly one of like my biggest joy, and working with the kids program, you can see how excited kids get about learning. So like that's what our explorers program is all about, is just to get kids more excited and curious about learning and experiencing the environment, the crafts, science, things that would help them to expand their minds and their um, yeah, to expand their minds. And another one, I think a big one for me was seeing the women come together for our women's group when we were doing our wellness walks around the community, seeing women prioritize that for themselves. That was really awesome to experience that in a rural community. I know oftentimes one of the challenges is to reach the women, to get them out. Women have that double burden where they'll have to work, and sometimes, when they come home, well, not sometimes, most times when they come home, they also have to take care of the kids, the family. There's not oftentimes that space for them to, hey, I want to go take a walk, or I want to do this for myself. So just, having that moment with the women from the community and sharing that, just to just go for a simple walk was something special.
I often say that anyone involved in this space doing this type of work is never really for the money or the fame, which are two things that are not really associated with this type of work. There's really some inner driving force, some inner motivation, some deep why that, inspires you to continue doing this work day in and day out. And I know there must be some challenges along the way. So, what would you say has been your biggest challenge, and how have you overcome it, or maybe you're currently working to overcome it?
I would say my biggest challenge personally is sort of the isolation from community sometimes, and connecting with other people within the field. Being in rural Guyana, that can definitely be a challenge. But more and more, by creating this hub and creating Vaksana itself, it's drawing people in from the community, from different parts of Guyana, different regions, from other spaces, from other countries. We're getting calls like yourself, to do interviews or podcasts, or just to have conversations about development and how we can connect or help our community. So um, that's kind of how I've dealt with the personal aspect of being here and doing this work. And the organizational aspect, one of the main challenges we have faced is financing. That is the biggest thing when it comes to nonprofits. It's how do we get funding? And and not only how do we get funding, because there's so many ways you can make funding, especially now in Guyana in its current market. Um, but it's how do we finance ourselves while staying true to our mission and staying true to sustainability and being able to do our outreach programs. Um, so one of the things that we've done is essentially to target that is to reach out to the community again, partner with other organizations and individuals that are aligning with our mission. And yes, it is absolutely a struggle and it can be difficult to keep going, but I think more and more people are seeing the work that we're doing, and they're coming to help. They're helping to finance different projects.
That's a really great point in terms of being able to access financing while also sticking to your core values.
Yes, it's very difficult.
And the difficulty in that, that's interesting because we hear a lot about financing and funding being made available, but there are other barriers to be considered. But I do applaud you for, sticking to your core values and finding creative ways to get your project off the ground. Not to put you on the spot or anything, but you mentioned Guyana's current market, and I think for persons who have not experienced Guyana and certainly have not experienced rural Guyana, when we hear Guyana now, we think of oil. But how would you describe Guyana to someone who hasn't yet had the experience of visiting Guyana and more so visiting beyond Georgetown?
Um, I would say do it now. Guyana is at a critical juncture in its development. Things are happening rapidly right now. Um, there's an influx of everything. There's a construction boom, infrastructure boom, everything. Um, so it's a very vibrational right now. It's you can see Guyana growing. You can see it's moving, it's progressing. But while that's all happening, there are, several issues with, where that funding is coming from, which is oil. There's the environmental challenges, there's the social challenges, the inequality gap rising, the inflation increasing. So there's a lot of things happening, but I think Guyana is at this time where we should experience it because, in the next 10 years, it would not be recognizable with the way development is proceeding right now. Um, that being said, yeah, come experience Guyana because there isn't just like the city, there is the absolutely beautiful countrysides like Essequibo where I live. There's like you said, the land of many waters. There's so many lakes, there's so many rivers, there is so many waterfalls. And the best thing about Guyana is that it is nearly untouched. But, it's not manicured, it's raw, it's wild, it's natural to experience. It's one of the few places I know that are just like an entire country of just it's like stepping back in time almost. And to watch development happen, if you are anyone in those type of fields, it's kind of watching an experiment kind of unfold. It's a beautiful time to be here. It's a beautiful time to experience all of this with even it's, the negatives. It's still, what a feat Guyana has achieved.
Raw, wild, and natural. I think that sums up Guyana quite. And I must say, I've had so many memorable experiences in Guyana, especially exploring outside of Georgetown, visiting Essequibo, of course, but also the Rupununi and the magnificent Kaitra Falls. There's lots to do. So I endorse what Menakshi said in terms of visiting now. And definitely the pace of development is quite rapid. So, things change, but I'm glad that we have people like you, Menakshi, who are prioritizing sustainable development.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the goal. And like I said, I hope this becomes a model that others can implement um, for their social responsibilities.
So, what's next for a Different View project and Vaksana? And also, how can we support your work?
What's next? Honestly, I've been racking my head. Now that the multipurpose building, at least phase one, has completed, I am at a state where I'm trying to figure that out. One of the things that we're working on is increasing our programs and activities. Like I said, we want to launch the Young Explorers program for the kids. There's a couple of activities we would like to do for women to get women focused um, on wellness, but also empowered to be able to prioritize that as well. So we're just trying to figure out what's the best method in doing that. Um, but yeah, one of the things we want to do is increase our programs and activities. And with that, now that we have the space to host that, um, those are the things. And the way you can get in touch with us is we have social media. We're on WhatsApp, Instagram. You can get us at vaksana.advp. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter and stay in touch. You get more details. You get stories about the community. Um, and there's our website, which is a differentview.ca. So there's all this information. You can grab us anywhere. Our number is also on there as well. You can give us a call or text us if you would like to get more information about what we're doing, if you want to help out. One of the things that we would like is volunteers from the diaspora or the Caribbean who would like to give back to our programmings with the kids. So if that's something you would like to do, yeah, please reach out.
You would like to fund any of Vaksana's initiatives, do reach out, and I will definitely place the link to your website in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, funding super important. See, sometimes I even forget to ask about that.
So the question that I ask all my guests on the Climate Conscious podcast, and I'm eager to hear your response, Menakshi, is in your view, what would make the world a better place?
Um, it's a very tough question. But in my view, I think we kind of just have to work together. We have to come together. It cannot just be one Guyana and unity as a brand, a catch all term. It has to actually mean that we're coming together and working together for the betterment of the communities, for the betterment of people. So yeah, unity, I think, is what we need to work towards. And once we achieve that, I feel like anything is possible.
Absolutely. So, Menakshi, this brings us to the end of our episode. I want to thank you so much for sharing your experience and demonstrating a model that brings together women's empowerment, community development, and sustainability. And I just want to encourage you to continue this invaluable work that you are doing. I know you may feel like you're just somewhere out there in Queenstown, Essequibo, but I can assure you that your commitment, your dedication, and your hard work will have ripple effects throughout Guyana and throughout the region. So I'm just really inspired by what you have done so far. And I know you're just getting started. And I'm really excited to see things evolve with a different view project and Vaksana.
That is absolutely the sweetest thing ever. Thank you so much for having me on here and giving me this opportunity to share our story, my story. And I hope you'll be coming back to Guyana and visiting us soon. Experience Vaksana when she's a bit more developed and, thriving.
Yes, for sure. Vaksana 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you so much again. And I hope we can do this again soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Climate Conscious podcast. We hope you found today's episode interesting, informative, and inspiring. Visit theclimateconscious.com for more info. I'm Derval Bazi, and this is the Climate Conscious podcast.